Before we get started with today's episode, I'd just like to get a few things out there for you guys. Thank you so much for all the support. It's meant the world to me. I love making this series, and with all this support, I'm only getting more ambitious. So I've opened a Patreon. So if you like the show, consider supporting it. I'm adding tons of perks. I'm getting more and more on that as I learn how to use Patreon, but we've got things like behind the scenes, a look at graphics, thoughts on the future of the show, and where we're looking to take and add more, and also the future plans I have for the channel. And there's one more cool thing to end on. Next month, October, will be Star Wars month. We're going to start with a few really cool games that I'm going to leave to when they come out. But one thing we are covering as well is Star Wars Squadrons, because it comes out on the 2nd of October. Not only will I be covering it on the channel, but I will also be covering it on Twitch as well. So do not forget, check the links down below. You got my Twitter, my Patreon, my Twitch, and all the other lovely jazz. But without further ado, let's carry on with the episode. Hello and welcome back to another episode of SuggesTing. Today we look at my first ever Mario RPG, and a friend of mine rated this the best iteration, even above 1,000 Year Door, which I must admit had me intrigued. So today, let's see if I'll be suggesting Paper Mario and the Origami King. Paper Mario is an RPG set in the Super Mario universe, which completely breaks the norms of what usually is a platformer collectathon, with what is now a turn-based story RPG that even has mature themes. But you can still collect some things, after all it is Mario, and I must admit the paper aesthetic is fantastic, and it really highlights what Nintendo is great at, utilising the power they have and creating an ageless art style for their games. This world has been crafted to perfection. Pardon the pun, but aesthetically, Nintendo could make this any day, and I'd be happy to look at it. Yes, it isn't beautiful like other games we have played, but it is lovely to look at. It's vibrant, filled with colour, and how everything is just folded into place just further adds to this theme. This game will be ageless in terms of graphical fidelity. There are so many different environments, which means you will never get tired of the scenery. You have your nice greens with the Wizardry Woods, Toad Town and Peach's Castle, the symbol of the Mushroom Kingdom, but even this starting area has its fair share of verticality with its mountains and waterside areas. Autumn Mountain probably gets my #1 spot in this. The colours just pop. It has a fantastic soundtrack, which I just loved hearing, and it rocks the Far East theme, which I couldn't get enough of. Shogun Studios is a Japanese theme park which, besides for story reasons, is jam-packed with mini-games, puzzles, and an amazing theatrical piece. This game has charm in spades. Now, I normally hate canyons and deserts with a passion, but this game did it right because 1, the night and day mixed it up, but mainly Shroom City. That music was hopping. I got stuck here because it's me, but not once did I mute the game. Also, the swimming pool has a DJ and that music is a banger too. Seriously, like, listen to it now. But if I did have any flaws though, when I had a quest dependent on a lake and an NPC called it a pond, it sent me on a 30-minute tangent searching everywhere else but the one place it seemed obvious to be. And I could have just been a bit nitpicky with the wording, but I thought they were giving me a hint. So that could be a problem for you as well. Just when you think you've seen it all, they add a whole nother area, and that's sailing, which will have you going through many islands, and it's surprising how many I missed the first time around. I had to come through these several times. Also, make sure you head back to Toad Town and get that double speed. It's like Wind Waker HD when they added the red sail. Only downside is I don't have time to make tea on the way to the islands now. They have a battle arena to add a new challenge, and there's a submarine minigame integrated. It's simple, however it breaks it up well. Shangri Spa is basically Toad Heaven turned into a spa retreat. And I'm going to have to stop myself here because, in short, everywhere is so varied, charming, and just an all-round joy to explore. You'll be hearing the soundtrack throughout this video, and I could listen to them all day for the positive vibes. There are also collectibles and tasks you can do while you're going around. You can fill holes left by the villain with confetti, rescue toads who will be in so many places, and fold into an insane amount of creatures, so basically hit everything because there's a chance a toad is there. You'll also find trophies of friends, objects, and more, which will be housed in the museum to help show your journey in a nice place to go look. Not for me though. Last off, to help you go from place to place, there's 2 different ways to fast travel. One is world pipes, there are 6 for each key area, and next is fax travel, and it's the same with them as well, there are also 6. But these are typically further along, so if you remember where you want to go specifically in the world, it will help to remember which one you'd like to go to. Every battle in this game is a puzzle, and that is its greatest strength. But before I delve into the whats and whys, this is how it works. Mario stands at the center of a circular grid, which can be rotated or moved up and down in sections. You have a limited number of turns and time, but the goal is to either get them to line up in a row of 4, or a block of 4, which is 2 by 2 enemies. And that's important too, because that varies on the weapon or move you use. If it's a line, then jump to your heart's content. If it's a block, then use the hammer with the power of Thor behind you. This system made every fight interesting. I personally get a huge disconnect with many RPGs and JRPGs because of the grind of the little fights. Not the difficult ones, bosses or mini-bosses, but the 1,000+ times I fight grunts that take up what I believe to be wasted time, that I could spend collecting cool stuff or progressing the story. Later on, this is further remedied by the fact you can jump or hammer the grunt-like units such as Goombas and Koopas, completely removing them from the equation. The only flaw being that you will get less money, but you do save on the durability of your items. There is both a ton of variety and not, and why do I say that? Because it is items, hammers or boots, and occasionally a elemental chucked in. There will be variations however, so you can get more damage or to better suit the minion. For example, they may have a spike on their head, you can still jump on them but it must be with iron boots. Need the damage of a hammer but they protect themselves with a boulder? Get that wall hammer in there and wreak havoc! And it can hit in a straight line, unlike its counterpart. Bosses. These are all unique and a joy to fight. They all have weaknesses, patterns and puzzles which all take time to figure out. You will face 4 of elementals in total, which will give you different elements to use in a smarter way later on. The main bosses though are the best. I love how Nintendo made them all stationary, from pencils to sellotape dispenser, scissors and even rubber freaking bands. No one feels the same, some are more difficult than others, but overall if anything got in the way of taking them down, it was my own inability to put the pieces together, and not some random BS, which is liberating. Being held when stuck is always nice. For me, that's Twitch chat, but in time battles there isn't time to wait to figure it out. So if you're caught in a bind, there is a cheer system. Every toad you save joins the crowd, and if you cheer anything from 100 to 500 coins, toads will surround the circle, do a little damage, heal you up, and most importantly, move the discs a turn or 2, which is just enough to make you realise you were being an idiot. And it was easy all along. But it does help you spot the tricks, so you end up using cheer less and less, and it is completely optional. So for scrubs like me, it can really help in a pinch. Overall, the fighting challenges you and keeps it fresh. I very rarely got annoyed with the many battles, and that shows just how well they did it, because very few RPGs find this balance or have a system in place that removes the problem. But I've gone on long enough about the fighting, let's cover exploring the world and all it holds. Paper Mario and the Origami King is about the invasion of an origami villain whose sole desire to turn the Mushroom Kingdom into his own Origami Kingdom. And he's doing this bit by bit, transforming Bowser's minions into folded soldiers and the toads into random creatures. Of course, he captures Peach and makes an origami too, but he finishes by moving Peach's castle to the top of a volcano, wrapping it in streamers, so the objective is to remove every single one throughout the kingdom so you can enter and take the big origami man down. I will briefly summarise the story as I tend to blather on sometimes. Mario teams up with Olivia, who is Ollie, the villain's sister. Together you will journey throughout whilst taking down the Vellumentals, which are elemental beasts for Olivia to transform into. These serve as mini-bosses however, because the big bad stationary is protecting the streamers which surround Peach's castle, of which there is 6. You will meet many characters along the way, from Bobby to the Captain, Luigi, Kamek, Bowser Jr., Bowser himself, and even hidden cafes with Bowser's minions to sit back, have a cup of joe, whilst getting their thoughts on Mario, even acknowledging their adversarial past, but putting it behind them for the task at hand, or even because they can't be bothered. And it was little moments like these that just made me really appreciate the game. But I must say I was very surprised at the themes present. They were surprisingly dark at times. Mild spoiler warning here, just for the next 30 seconds or so. Let's continue. When Bobby sacrificed himself to save Olivia with his dead best friend's fuse, that was some insanely dark stuff. I actually felt sad, and that was in a Mario game. But for honesty's sake, This was the only time it happened, but once is enough. Rest in peace, Bobby. One thing I really did appreciate was the characters, and they were all full of life. Each one had their own charm, and therefore a reason to love them. I was quite sad I didn't get a Koopa companion this time round though, but my favourite would have to be Bobby. That little ball of amnesia, and his journey to slowly gain his memory back, and the end of his arc was on another level from what I was expecting from a Mario game. How good is this journey? It ends strong with the final boss fight, having a few phases revealing all the motivations of the villain and some more greatness. I don't want to spoil, but overall I had fun throughout and it didn't feel like there was any filler. Unless you count getting distracted, charting the known islands, finding lost toads, finding chests, filling all the confetti holes, then they have that in spades. Paper Mario is a game filled with charm, good vibes, a killer soundtrack, and a fighting system that actually engages you. It took me roughly 35 hours to beat. I could have done it quicker, but I got distracted, filling every hole, finding treasure, and there was that time I went and perfected every minigame in Shogun Studios, but I digress. With everything taken into account, I am suggesting Paper Mario and the Origami King. Thank you for sticking by until the end of this video. You are my favourite, but don't tell the others. And without further ado, I'd like to shout out to our first 2 Patreon members who didn't even wait to see the perks before chucking in their support. So thank you, Samson and MRC. You're both true Vikings. Score. It's Sunday, alright? Day of rest. So it's water. Alright?